here for Ryan Golf, developer and designer of the Blackhawk and Black Swan putters. What you're witnessing is a 48 ball drill where I hit 48 putts in sequence, 4 sets of 12 from 27 feet. This particular day I happened to be at Myrtle Beach National in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina on the putting green, the one that's on the nearest side of the clubhouse. I think it's Mini Verde, I think was the Bermuda grass that they have there, if I'm not mistaken. But it's some type of dwarf Bermuda in any case. Fairly good for a putting green. This particular putt's got a little bit of slope to it. And the idea is to hit a number of putts from a single location to determine the efficiency of the player and being able to hit the putt where he wants to, which basically eliminates the green reading aspect of a putt to some degree, pretty large degree in fact. And there's good and bad discussion on this topic already. Most people don't really understand breaking factors into multiple tests to be able to verify. And what we have found is that when we gave a professional a test where he was able to hit 30 putts from a single spot, his make percentage goes up a few percent above what it would have been otherwise. So if a tour professional would have made maybe 8% from 30 feet on a series of putts on tour, where he's hitting only one putt at a time and the putts are as difficult as they make them, when we do this test with them, they're not a whole lot better than that. They might be 10%, for example, which is 2% better in raw terms, which is 25% better in compounded terms. And that differential doesn't really get off the charts big. It stays fairly small. So in any case, if we use a benchmark for a 30-footer of about 10% for what a tour player would do, we derate that because we're 27 feet, we're a little bit closer, so it's 11 or 12%. Let's just say that a tour player that is 12% from 27 feet would be pretty darn good, which when you're hitting a dozen balls, you're going to be making probably one or two. If you're hitting 48, you're going to be making about maybe 6 or 7. So 6 out of 48 would be a pretty good performance. That's 12.5%. And I had a number of tour players that have done tests with their putter, not our putter at first, their putter first, where they had no idea what was coming, and they made roughly between 10 and 15% from about 30 feet, and they seemed quite pleased with that result. In other words, it didn't shock them that that's what the number was. It wasn't terribly bad by their standards. It also wasn't terribly good. It was just pretty good. It's what they expected. And then we put our putter in their hands, and they pretty much come close to doubling their makes. They make 40% more, 50% more, sometimes 100% more when they do a long enough trial where the statistics get to where we call significant and robust levels. And the whole idea is to know the truth of something, not to just try to create statistics for the sake of an argument. We're looking for truth. So what we do is we do hard engineering style testing, similar to what I did in factories for years, where we design a test to isolate factors, and then we look at what the results are, and then we make a judgment based on that. So what we're doing is we're isolating the factor of the putter itself and the hands. In other words, the golfer is the same, the conditions are pretty much the same, the environment, the putt that they're hitting is the same. We simply just switch one putter out of the hands and put the other one in, and we run a test. So hard as this is to believe, perhaps, I will give you a real quick analogy of what's going on. Tiger Woods is one of the best putters in the world by common consensus for the last 16, 17 years. And we have his putting statistics, so the PGA Tour has been keeping pretty robust statistics since ShotLink came along. And they do something really good, which is strokes gained putting as a method of determining how good a putter you really are, for example. But they also do a much better job in just raw data collection, which is ShotLink's make percentages from a distance. And when you classify putts for how tough they are, they don't have different factors for green speed or the grain of the greens or the slope, average slope of the green surface that they're putting on. They don't put in factors for where the cups are cut, if it was a tougher day or an easier day as far as that goes. They just basically they measure one metric, which is putts made from a distance, and that's actually the most robust way you can do it because everything else is far more subjective. This is totally objective. In other words, they laser the distance that the putt's being hit. I don't have a laser for doing that. I use a tape rule, and if I have a 150-foot putt to do, I've actually got a wheel that I walk it off with, or I can if I walk it with my steps, I know exactly how far it is too because it's pretty consistent. But when you have a 27-foot putt, for example, it's about the sweet spot of whether you putt well or not with a putter is when you're outside of close distance, because the closer you are to the hole, the more the green matters in terms of its relative. In other words, if you have a really bumpy green, a 4-foot putt is a nightmare, but a 30-foot putt's not going to really go in a whole heck of a lot less than it would have on a pretty good green. So what we do is we try very hard to find very valid parameters for our testing regime. And now that we got a greensmower coming by to do some fringe work, we're going to have to talk over the top of him. You might not hear it the same. So what you're witnessing again is a 48 ball drill from 27 feet by the guy who designed the putter, me. And I do this every day. So far I've made 7, 7, and 7 for the first 3 sets of 12. If you stop and think about that for a second, that's just off the charts nuts. Because I just made 21 out of 36 from where a guy should be about 10 or 11 or 12%. So in other words, it would take a normal golfer about 250 putts, or a tour pro about 180 putts, to make 21 putts from this distance. I just did it in 36, which is about 5 times better than a tour pro, and about 7 or 8 times better than an amateur. And the only difference between me and them, the tour pro or the regular amateur, is I actually have a tool in my hands that putts where it aims. In other words, we've solved the compound angle problem that all putters have, and built a putter to fit the player with perfect geometry, and built a putter that the sweet spot is actually big enough that a human being can hit it more than 10 or 20% of the time, which is actually about what the tour pros do. They hit the sweet spot between 10 and 20% of the time to a high enough degree that they really don't degrade their performance at all. But outside of that, which is about 80 or 90% of the putts they hit, there is enough variance in the strike to affect the way the ball is going to go. So here I am making my last set, and again, I'm already off the charts high, so it really doesn't matter what I do here. It's already pretty impressive. But I'm going to give you a couple quick numbers that helps you get to it. Remember I mentioned a guy named Tiger Woods early on? He actually, in 2013, was one of the better putters between 15 and 25 feet, which is about 30% shorter on average than this putt here. He made 26 putts the entire year between 15 and 25 feet, and he took 143 putts to do it. Well, watch right here. My 26 putt goes in at the 43rd putt. So it took me 100 putts less than Tiger to get to 26 from a distance that's 30% farther than the body statistics that we just quoted on Tiger. So in other words, Tiger from 30% closer, at least 30% closer, was not even a third as good. In other words, I made triple the putts he made from a distance 30% farther than Tiger. So stop and think about that for a second. Am I some kind of a wizard? Is this tricks? Do we have something underneath the hole pulling golf balls into it? I don't think so. This is just me with a camera on a putting green with a Black Hawk making putts like I do every bloody day. Have a good day.